Hey everyone, this is Rob with Codecademy. I'm a software developer based out of Seattle, Washington. In this video, we're going to walk through another C# project, Exquisite Corpse. To complete this project, you'll need to be familiar with how to automate the process of calling functions, how to define a method's return type and its method signature, and also how to refactor your code to make it more dry. Alright, let's get started. Our project, Exquisite Corpse, is based on the game Exquisite Corpse, where participants draw either a head, body, or feet of a creature, not knowing how their body part is going to connect to the other two until the drawings are finished. So in this project, we're going to mimic that game. Using methods, you'll be able to randomly combine different parts of ASCII characters so they create a new creature. Let's go ahead and get started by creating a build a creature method. Alright, let's begin by taking a look at our program. In our editor, we can see that we have 9 methods: ghost head, ghost body, and ghost feet. Each of these will print out to the terminal some ASCII art to represent a different part of the ghost. We have another 3 methods for bug head, bug body, and bug feet, and also monster head, monster body, and monster feet as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at how our code is running so far. We'll go ahead and run the ghost head method, ghost body method, and ghost feet method, and it should print out these 3 body parts of our ghost. So let's go ahead and try that out. Ghost head, ghost body, and then finally ghost feet. Okay, let's go ahead and save our code. And then to run our code, we'll go ahead and type in .NET run. Alright, we can see that we've printed out our ghost head. Then we can see that we printed out our ghost body. And then finally, our ghost feet. Awesome. Let's mark step 1 as complete and move on to step 2. What if we could automate this process? Instead of in our main method running 3 different methods, what if we could create one method that combines all those calls for us? This way we could just easily swap out body parts and quickly create a lot of different creature combinations. So after our main method, let's go ahead and create another method. We'll call this build a creature. This is going to take 3 string parameters of head, body, and feet, each representing different parts of the body. Now let's move on to step 3. When we eventually call the build a creature method, we want to be able to pass in the name of creatures as arguments to tell the method which parts of the creature to select. So we want to be able to call this and pass in ghost, bug, monster, and have the work done for us by the build a creature method. So I'm going to go ahead and remove those lines of code for now, and we'll later occupy this in a second when we test our build a creature method. So moving on, in our build a creature method, we're going to create 3 switch statements. Each switch statement should use the value of a parameter, and the cases should call the creature methods. So for example, one switch statement should take the value of head, and if the value of head is ghost, so if the case is the string ghost, then we want to output the method ghost head. Then we'll add a break. In the second case, we'll say if the value is monster, then we want to output the method monster head. Then we'll break. And then in the third case of bug, in this case we want to output the method bug head. Alright, and now we want to do this not just for the head, but also for the body and for the feet. So this is a lot of repeated code, so let's go ahead and just copy this, and we'll paste it in. And now our switch statement will run on the value of body, and if the case is ghost, we want to output the method ghost body. If the case is monster, we want to output monster body. And if the case is bug, we want to output bug body. Now we'll go ahead and copy this one more time. And now we want to look at the value provided for feet. If the case is ghost, then we want to output ghost feet. If the case is monster, we want to output the method monster feet. And if the case is bug, we want to output the method bug feet. All right, let's save our code. Now let's go ahead and go to our main method, and let's test out our build a creature method. In step 4, we're just going to pass in 3 strings. So for example, we could say ghost, monster, and then finally bug. So if we run our code, ghost should be our first case for head, and we should output ghost head. Monster should be our next case for body, which means our case of monster should output our monster body method. Finally, bug is our third argument for a value for feet, which should output our bug feet method. So let's save our code, and let's go ahead and run it. Perfect. Just as we would expect. We have our ghost head, we have our monster body, and we have our bug feet. Alright, we can mark step 4 as complete, as well as step 5. We tested out our method, and then we output it to the console to see the results. Perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to step 6, where we're going to work on our create a random mode method. So underneath our build a creature method, we're going to make another method called random mode. In this method, we're trying to automate the process for building a random creature. Instead of always having to provide a head or a body or a feet, we want to build a random method that creates a new monster of new combinations each time. And that's what this method will help us to achieve. This method is going to take advantage of the random class and its method next. We'll take a look at that in a moment. So let's mark step 6 as complete, and in step 7, we'll start to build out this method. So inside of random mode, we need to create an instance of random. We've shown you how to do that in this step. You can just type in random. Don't let the language of classes throw you off, as we haven't covered them yet in our C# course. We can just trust that this works for now. So random number, and we'll set this equal to new random. Alright, so this class is going to allow us to take advantage of some built-in methods for the random class. So mark step 7 as complete, and now we'll move on to step 8. We want to use random's next method to randomly pick a number between 1 and inclusive of 3. So that means we're going to use a range with the values of 1 and 4. And because there's 3 things that we want to select, a head or body or feet, we want to call the next method 3 times, storing the value to 3 different variables. So we'll create a variable head, type int, and we'll set it equal to random number dot next, and then we'll pass in our range of 1 and 4. Now we're also going to do this 2 more times for the body and for the feet. Alright, let's mark step 8 as complete, as now we have generated a random number for our head, body, or feet. So head is going to equal 1, 2, or 3, body will equal 1, 2, or 3, and feet will equal 1, 2, or 3. So in step 9, the next thing we're going to do is something similar to what we did in the build a creature method, which is using a switch statement to determine which creature methods to call. However, this time our switch statements are going to be based on integers instead of strings. But we're going to be basically reusing the same switch statement twice. So for now, we'll leave random mode untouched, and we'll come back to it in a moment. So on to step 10. Let's start refactoring our code. So what does refactor mean? When you refactor something, the user may not notice a difference in how your program works initially. However, on the code side, you may have optimized the code for better performance, or you may have refactored it to reduce the chance of bugs, or sometimes refactoring it just to make it more human readable for other developers who will be maintaining your code in the future. We're going to create a new method called switchCase, and it's going to have 3 parameters: an int head, int body, and also a final int of feet. And hopefully you can see the connection that this is going to relate to our head, body, and feet that we created in our random mode method. So for now, let's mark step 10 as complete, and we'll move on to step 11. Inside of our switch case, we're going to write 3 switch statements that use the parameter integer values to call the different creature parts. So we could type all of this by hand again, but this is almost the exact same code as we have in our build a creature method. So I'm going to go ahead and copy these 3 switch statements. And I'm going to return to our switch case method and paste those in. Now the difference is that our head value that's passed in isn't a string ghost, a string monster, or a string bug, but it's going to be the number 1, 2, or 3. 1 for ghost, 2 for monster, 3 for bug. So we can go ahead and just replace the string ghost with the number 1, the string monster with the number 2, and the string bug with the number 3. And we could do that for our remaining 2 switch statements as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and mark this step 11 as complete, and we'll move on to step 12. We want to test out our switch case to make sure it works by calling it in main. So we commented out this build a creature method, and we'll call our switch case method, and then we'll go ahead and pass in 3 values, 1, 1, 1. Now I'm going to save our code, and I'll go ahead and clear out the console. And now when we run our code, what we should expect is when switch case is called, and we pass in 1, 1, and 1, this means that we have the head is set to 1, the body is set to 1, and the feet are set to 1. So when we switch on the head, which is a case of 1, we should print out ghost head. When we pass in 1 to the body, this will switch on the case of 1 for ghost body. And when we switch on 1 for the feet, we hit the case 1, which outputs our ghost feet method. So let's go ahead and run our code and see what happens. Perfect. We have our ghost head, our ghost body, and our ghost feet. Alright, let's mark step 12 as complete, and we'll go ahead and move on to step 13. We're going to return to our random mode method that we created earlier. Instead of calling switch case in our main method, we can now call it in our random mode method. And we no longer have to pass in values of 1, 1, 1 like we did earlier, or 1, 2, 3, or any other combination, because head, body, and feet are all generated randomly. So we just pass in the variable head, body, and feet. So let's mark step 13 as complete, and we'll move on to step 14. We'll return to our main method, and instead of calling switch case and passing in values, we should just be able to call our random mode method, and we don't have to pass in any values because those are already being randomly generated. So let's save our code, and let's run our code. Awesome. Every time we run our code, we get a randomly generated monster. Perfect. We'll mark step 14 as complete, and we'll move on to step 15. Now that we have a switch statement, we want to be able to use it in the build a creature method, but we have a significant problem. We mentioned this earlier. The build a creature method takes a string type for head, body, and feet, while the switch case function takes a type of int for head, body, and feet. So in order to keep using strings, we need to create a method that translates the meaning of our string data into ints. And the reason we need to do this is because we have duplicated code. We have one method, our switch case, that takes in ints and prints to the console, and another build a creature that takes in strings and prints to the console. If you pause for a moment and take a look at both of those methods, you'll see quite a bit of repeated code. So we want to make our program more dry. Dry stands for don't repeat yourself. This makes your code more readable for others, it reduces the size of your code base, and when and if a bug is discovered, you can address the bug in one location of your code rather than needing to find and change it in multiple places. So we would like to have this functionality in one place so that it's easier to maintain and debug. So we'll begin our refactor by converting the strings ghost, monster, and bug to ints. We'll see what this looks like in the next couple steps. So beneath our switch case method, we're going to create another method, static, and make sure to use int here for our output, and then we'll name our method translate to number, and the parameter is going to be a string type of creature. And so this method is going to take in a creature name and translate it to an int. So for example, we want ghost to be 1, bug to be 2, and monster to be 3. Okay, let's mark step 15 as complete and start to build out this method. So inside of our translate to number method, we're going to use another switch statement. So we'll switch on creature, and in the case of the string ghost, we want to return 1. Now you'll notice in this switch statement, we aren't using the break keyword. This is because when we match a case in these switch statements, there's the return keyword involved. The return keyword will automatically take us out of this switch code block when we return a value, so we don't need the break keyword in this instance. In the case of bug, we want to return 2. And in the case of monster, we want to return 3. And then finally, we'll go ahead and put a default that will return 1. Okay, let's go ahead and save our code. And we can mark step 16 as complete. In step 17, now that we have our switch statement in a method, we have a way to translate string values to integer values. We can now take out the switch statement in the build a creature method. So let's go ahead and find that method. And we're going to take out all 3 of the switch statements. Perfect. Let's mark step 17 as complete. And in step 18, we're going to take a string value that's passed to the build a creature parameters, and we're going to convert them to ints using the translate to number. So we're going to need to do this 3 times to convert 3 strings to 3 integers. So for a variable of type int, we'll use head num for head, and we'll set it equal to translate to number. This is our method, and we'll pass in head. I'll go ahead and copy that line, and we'll do this 2 more times. For body number, we'll pass in the string body to our translate to number method, and then finally feet num, in which we'll pass in the string for feet to our translate to number method as well. Awesome, we can mark step 18 as complete. So now a string of ghost fed into the translate to number method is going to return 1. A string of bug passed into the translate to number method will return a number 2. And the string of monster passed into the translate to number method will return a number 3. Okay, so let's return to our build a creature method. And the last thing we want to do is we want to call the switch case method. And we're going to pass in head num, body num, and then feet num. Perfect. Great job. You've just done a major refactor on your code using methods. So let's go ahead and run the final program. I'm going to clear out the console. I'm going to save the code. Then I'm going to remove line 10, as that's just a line of code that we were testing earlier. And first we'll run the random mode method to make sure that this is working as we would expect. Awesome. Without giving any input, we get a new monster every time we run our code. Let's follow the flow of our code on this. We call random mode, So we find our method random mode. On line 23, we begin to generate a random number by using the random class. Then on lines 24, 25, and 26, we create variables of type int for the head, body, and feet, and on the random class, we use the next method to assign them a random number of 1, 2, or 3. Then we call our switch case method, and we pass in a value of 1, 2, or 3 for head, body, or feet. So in our switch case, we have a head with a value of 1, 2, or 3, a body with a value of 1, 2, or 3, and a feet with a value of 1, 2, or 3. And then we run the appropriate method based on the cases that match for head, body, and feet, creating our monsters. Okay, let's return back to our build a creature method, and we'll go ahead and comment out random mode, and then we'll go ahead and restore our build a creature method. Alright, so let's go ahead and do one final track down of how our build a creature method works. We have a string ghost, string monster, and string bug passed in. So for our build a creature, we have ghost, monster for body, and bug for feet. So we have 3 variables. Let's look at one. For head num, we passed in the string of ghost to the translate to method. We have a variable of type int, in which we call the translate to number method, and we pass in the string of ghost. So let's go to the translate to number method, and we've passed in a string of ghost for creature. So when we run our switch statement on our creature, we match the case of ghost, and this returns the number 1. So if we go back to our build a creature method, head num is 1, body number of monster will be 2, feet number of bug will be 3. So into our switch case, we're passing 1, 2, and 3. So let's look at switch case. Head is 1, body is 2, and feet is 3. So with head at a value of 1, we call our ghost head method. For body, with a value of 2, matching our case of 2, we call our monster body method. And then, when we switch on feet, a value of 3 that matches our case of 3, calling the bug feet method. This gives us our monster to the right. Now let's mark step 20 as complete. Great job on your project. If you have some more time and you're feeling ambitious, we've given you a few ideas below for how you can extend your project. You could create a build a creature method so that all of its parameters are optional, and it will randomly assign a body part if a body part is not specified. You could also recreate this program so instead of outputting a creature immediately, we could prompt the user to select which parts of each creature to use to build a creature. You could also create a starting mode, allowing the user to randomly create a creature or to create one manually. Or finally, we have a link to an ASCII art archive in which you can add other parts to the program. Alright, great job in this project. This is Rob with Codecademy. Happy coding.